Today I want to talk to you about your mindset entering into retirement and what you want. Sometimes there's a lot of questions that you're going to need to ask yourself about how you want to live, what your goals are, and this will impact how your retirement plan is actually going to work. Now, some people have very little choice. They have, a pension and CPP and OAS and maybe a RSP, and, it's very simple and there's not a lot to do. And if you don't have a lot of money, then you kind of need to make sure that you're choosing the mathematical option that gives you the best probability of success. But when you start having more money, you have more options about how you actually want to do this. So you can start asking yourself these questions, because this is going to then help you build your retirement plan based on what you like rather than what you need to do. So what I mean by that is, if you have a whole bunch of money, one of the choices that you're probably going to need to make first is, do I want to pay more tax while I'm living? Or do I want my estate to have a larger tax bill? So that's one thing that's going to potentially happen, and a trade-off that you're going to have to make, which is then going to dictate maybe, okay, well, if I'm choosing this one option, then maybe an RSP meltdown is better for me. But if I want this option, then maybe an RSP meltdown isn't for me. And then you have to come up with the conclusion about when you're wanting to take CPP and OAS. And there's like the mathematical component to this, and then there's also the emotional component to this, which is saying, I paid into this my whole life. I see that I can take this income right now. I want this income right now, even though I know if I delay that it's mathematically going to give me more money if I live past this certain age, which obviously we don't know. Another choice that you can make, especially if you have a lot of money, is, do you want to have a larger estate for your children, or do you want to be helping your children and grandchildren now? Because if you want a larger estate, okay, that's fine. Then you can just keep investing and doing what you're doing. Or if you're going to be gifting more, well, how can you do that in a tax advantage manner? Now, the big thing, obviously, especially right now, and you kind of feel sorry for retirees that are sort of entering into the idea of retiring right now, is that we do live in a little bit of a chaotic time right now, where we're not totally certain about what's going to happen with the markets and the economy and all these other things. And so your mindset about investing is now going to kind of switch. You're 65, you're potentially living till 90, you do have a long time horizon, even though you're taking money out. But are you going to be able to sleep at night if there is a big correction, or do you want more safety and less potential growth? So do you want your accounts to grow, or do you want your accounts to be safer, where you can have better sleep at night? So that's sort of one thing that you really need to discuss, because, like the mindset of advisors is supposed to be, well, long term, the market's always going to go up and all of these great things are going to happen as long as you're invested for the long term. But is that going to cause you too much short-term anxiety? Why does anybody want to be retired with anxiety? So finding that right balance of how to invest is also a big part of it, because some people don't really need to make a whole bunch of money with their investments to make their retirement plan work. So they have other options, where other people are going to need to invest in order to make their retirement plan work. There is also, like, are you a spender in retirement, or are you a budgeter? Some people really want to live it up. They want to travel. They want these go-go years to be really exciting. That's what they work for. When people have enough money, I have to try and talk them into spending more money. It's one of my favorite things to do, because what happens is, it is like this really hard hurdle to overcome, where you've been saving and growing your investments over time. And then you get to that phase where you're like, I'm actually starting to take money out now, and I don't like seeing my account values go down, which is also going to, dictate for some people when they're going to take CPP and OAS. Because if you're delaying it, well, then you're going to have to take more of your own money in the beginning. And some people just really do not like that idea, even though mathematically it works out better in the long run. So you have to decide, are you okay with these certain things and like the optics of how these things are happening? Because we're not robots, we're emotional beings. If we were robots and the world worked in like the manner that a software plan shows, where every line is straight and all these things happen and your budget is perfect every month and whatever, and you're going to die at this exact age, sure, it's very, very easy to put together a financial plan. However, that's not reality. You have control over these things, over your decisions, and it's a hard sort of thing to transition into. Are you going to downsize? What are you going to want to do if you or your spouse gets sick or needs long-term care? That's what I don't really talk about go, slow go, no go, because I don't necessarily believe that no go is a stage for everybody. Sometimes in those final years of life, it's actually the most expensive retirement years that a lot of people end up happening. That is certainly not a no-go phase. That is potentially a very expensive phase. Good example of this is my granddad and my nana, who basically didn't spend anything in their early 80s. And then my nana started getting sick, so my granddad hired some people to live in his house, some lovely Filipino ladies that lived with my nana and him and took care of them. Well, these were very expensive years for my granddad because that's how he wanted his life to be. He wanted to end his life in his house, which he did. Are you going to be doing a lot of traveling? Well, if that's the case, one thing you might want to consider is that travel 80 policy I talked about a while ago. I heard they were going to take it off the shelf, but it's currently still on the shelf. And anytime that I hear about an insurance company thinking about taking a product off the shelf, that means it was actually too good and they don't want it anymore because they're not going to be making money. So in my opinion, this is actually going to be a good product for a lot of people. Certainly not right for everybody. How loose is your budget going to be? Do you want to upgrade your house? Do you want to spend these big bucks? Or do you want your life to look like this in retirement? Or are you going to continue to not spend a whole bunch of money? Because spending a ton of money in early retirement can have a huge future impact. So you need to make sure that you're not wasting too much money in the beginning, because your money is not going to last as long. Are you going to work part-time? When do you want to do all these things? Retirement mindset and getting the transition from working into retirement is a difficult one for a lot of people. It sounds so amazing, and it is amazing, and you worked your whole life very hard and did a lot of the right things and tried to make the right decisions, and now you're ready for this. But are you emotionally ready for it is another question. And so you need to start having these conversations with your spouse or yourself and potentially a financial planner to say, this is kind of what I want. How can I build a plan based on what I actually want rather than, just going by the math all the time. Just some food for thought, nothing too groundbreaking there, but thought I'd share my thoughts on that and hope everybody's doing well. And if you haven't, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.